Du lyssnar på Dekonstruktiv kritiks julkalender. Jag är Aron Flam. Idag ska vi se vem eller vad som döljer sig bakom lucka nummer 16. Nämen, är det ett socialistiskt land på ruinens brant som Ali Esbati hade så höga förhoppningar om? Japp.
So they accuse you of being an activist.
Right. Exactly.
Because you have taken sides according to the regime, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, according to them, I will say that there are, if I'm going to agree to something, I would say that, of course, I gave a statement publicly in the National Assembly.
Yes.
Which
you were asked if you were to take sides, and you said you can't take sides, but you would prefer to be on the side of freedom.
Yeah, which is, to me, not a very radical statement. I mean, to me, it's sort of should be second nature to anyone. And what I did there, and what I was very careful to do, was that I was invited to speak about my experience being taken by the colectivos and held at gunpoint. And that was what I spoke about. Not once did I mention the government. Not once did I malign anyone. What I did was speak about something that was obviously criminal activity, to hold a journalist at gunpoint, threatening their lives and, slapping them across the face. And for me, it's bizarre to be called an activist by calling out what it was obviously a crime committed. So calling me an activist, yes, I was on the side geographically. I was in the home of the opposition telling that story.
But they also accuse you of being very close to a lot of the opposition in the
right. And the reason, I mean, I think what they were saying between the lines was actually they're alluding to me having a relationship with a particular person within the opposition, even, which has also been a very popular type of commentary on the internet in the past week. That apparently the reason I'm so involved is that I have an opposition boyfriend, which, for the record, I don't. I'm still gloriously single. However,
duly noted.
Yeah. I just want the internet to know because it's important. It's hard out there for a single Jewess. So the point is that I have tried to get access to the government. I have tried for 3 months to get access to every level of the government. If I was invited to go speak with the government and to speak about my experience in Venezuela publicly, in the same halls, but for the government, I would 100% do that. If I was allowed to sit down with Maduro, I would do that. If I was allowed to sit down with Diosdado, I would do that. And I have tried and tried and tried. But the issue in Venezuela is that the people that will grant me access are opposition, which is also why I've taken extraordinary steps and put myself in danger to go to places that are only accessed by Chavistas, that are only accessed by colectivos, to give a very fair and balanced view in a place where no one does that, because it's easy. It's easy to say, Guaido is God. Now I'll go back into, to comfortable Europe again and do my reports from there. But I didn't do that. I kept staying, even though it's like I'm having this very difficult, it's like a romantic relationship, a very tumultuous romantic relationship where you keep being treated like shit, but you keep coming back. And feeling the love regardless. And that's sort of my relationship with Venezuela, that I keep coming back and trying to give fair assessments of a very difficult situation, which is why I don't really understand why they deported me in the first place, because, this doesn't look good for anybody. And having me in there and allowing me the access would probably be a better course of action, in my humble opinion.
Well, the other line of attack against you let's find out what they were called, Orinoco Tribune. Orinoco Tribune.
They're getting a lot of shout outs today. Yeah.
They will get more. They will get more shout outs. Yeah. So they accuse you of being too close to Sheldon Adelson, which is a rich American Jew, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, the rich American Jew, from what I've heard. Yes.
Well, there are several, actually.
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
And a part of the Tikva Fund, which is a Zionist organization.
Yeah, it is, and also politically conservative, which is,
that too.
Too. So it's all of those things. And yeah, I've studied at the Tikva Fund in New York, and I think it even says so on my Wikipedia. Like, it says so everywhere. It's on my Wikipedia. It's out there.
So it's not a secret.
No, and I'm quite proud of it. I mean, it's a very distinguished place, and I've learned a lot. And this is a think tank where you study under a lot of very distinguished, knowledgeable professors. And I've studied religion there. I've studied, freedom of speech, military issues, all of these things, because this is my line of work, of course. These are the things I cover as a journalist, and I've never
But
tried
how
to
do you view journalism? Because I've read a few articles of you, and you are quite emotional.
I am, yeah, and I think that's what put me in this position. It's the blessing of the curse of it all, that I kind of walk into these situations heart first. And even, my security...
Always brain first.
No, I can't. Yeah, but I'm not on that whole, Jordan train. I don't do that. Like, this is I'm all heart, sort of. And that's why I think why people respond to the work that I do, because I'm obviously emotionally invested. Some would say that that's not okay for a journalist to put so much of themselves into it. And
I would be one of those people, actually.
Yeah,
but if you're just a writer, then fine. I mean, if you write novels or, I guess whatever. Hemingway was in a war, I think.
Yeah, several.
And his works weren't that emotional, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm trying to stay away from the Hemingway comparison as best I can, but I will say that I think that what I'm doing is for sure journalism, because if I wanted to give the emotional narrative, if I wanted to sell a romantic story, then the smart thing to do would be to solely cover the opposition and then write that narrative as it's being sold. But what I have done, especially in the last month, is I wrote, one very scathing article about Guaido and the opposition and the failures of that opposition, and why I think, they've lied to a certain extent and failed to several extents.
The opposition.
The opposition, yes.
Yeah, because you were one of the first journalists to interview Guaido.
Yes.
Guaido.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I did that on my first trip. And then after my third trip, seeing how things changed, and especially after what happened at the border on the 23rd of February, again, with both brain and emotion, I could see that something was tangibly different in the country and how people felt about the opposition. And then learning more about the history of the work that the opposition had done, I wrote a very long article for the Daily Beast about what I thought was basically Guaido dropping the ball. And if I feel like I've received hatred now from the Chavistas, it's nothing compared from what I received from the opposition then, because of course they felt that I had failed them, that I should be on a certain side, and I was not. And I got the same type of hatred when I went into La Piedrita and met with the top colectivo boss in Venezuela. And when I sat down and spoke with him, because they thought me being in that room was selling out, me being there was siding with evil, basically. And so I think that you can be emotional, because I am emotional about Venezuela. I am emotional when I see things that evoke human emotion, but I also think that it's the most effective type of journalism, because today everyone is flooded with information, but you need to sell the story, and you need to sell it, come at people like a human being. And for better or worse, like, all my flaws are out at any given time. I'm really telling stories in real time, and I'm doing it as a person experiencing it in real time. And I think that's why it's very effective. And I think also that's why it's perceived as quite threatening by certain people, because I'm alone out there. I go out alone, and I'm experiencing and learning and asking questions as anyone would in that position. And I don't think it takes away from my journalistic effort, not at all, because, I adhere to the rule of sourcing. I am fair and balanced more than most, to be honest, especially when it comes to Venezuela. But yeah, I've been photographed crying and laughing and dancing with Chavistas and, hugging opposition, because these are people, and I relate to those people. And I show that there, like I said once and many times perhaps, is that there are a lot of colors in Venezuela, and none of them are black and white. And nor, there are no black and whites in these stories, unfortunately. No unequivocally good and bad. It's just a really fractured and broken society, and that's why it's important to be there.
So how is press freedom in Venezuela at the moment?
Well, I mean, I was deported.
Well, I mean, for internal media.
Anything that I go through is nothing compared to what my colleagues go through on the ground, of course, because for whatever reason, I have a certain amount of security with a Swedish passport, with being able to reach much further than most Venezuelan journalists can. And the things that happen in the cover of darkness, we know, are, somewhere between horrible and despicable.
Tack för att du lyssnar på Dekonstruktiv kritik. Jag är Aron Flam. Vill du stötta Dekonstruktiv kritiks arbete, och det vill du, så kan du göra det på patreon.com/aronflam. Patreon.com/aronflam är ett ord. Via PayPal, med Bitcoin eller på Swish 0768 94 3737. 0768 94 3737. Du kan och bör också köpa boken Det här är en svensk tiger och boken Älskade public service som jag skrivit tillsammans med Jens Ganman. Till nästa lucka, det vill säga imorgon, ha en god tidsenhet.